If you're new to Total War Warhammer 3, there's going to be a few little things that you get wrong. But it's the bigger mistakes that can really send your campaign down the proverbial toilet, so here's 5 mistakes that newer players make in their campaigns.
Where's the money?
So money, just like real life, is pretty much the center of everything, sadly. If you don't generate enough money, you'll likely generate your own death. Again, much like real life. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into income in Total War Warhammer, but the plain and simple of it is that your income always needs to be increasing. As the turns go by, your income should be going up. Because without income, you can't fund armies, and if you can't fund armies, you can't take new territory or protect the territory you have. If your income should plateau or even go down, you're going to find that the AI is going to start to outpace you. They're going to be able to afford more armies because their income's still going up, and you're going to fall behind and get overwhelmed eventually. Now, there's many different ways to generate income, but one of the main ones is simply income buildings. Of course, these little buildings that you can put in pretty much every settlement, make sure you put these pretty much everywhere. Early on with a province, you might want to put growth buildings first to level things up. I like to get my main settlement to tier 3 and then get rid of the growth buildings, replace them with income buildings mostly. And of course, the earlier you do this, the more income they're going to generate, so ultimately the more money you're going to gain. The next thing is to think about where you're spending your money. So for example, here in this dwarf campaign, I don't have a ton of income, I don't have a ton of money, but I've got lots of free slots and stuff to upgrade. So where should I put my money? The natural temptation is to put a lot of money into military buildings early, so you can get all the cool units like Slayers. But guess what? Slayers aren't cheap, they cost 225, so even 2 of those is going to take about a third of my income, which isn't great. We can't really afford these units yet, so constructing that building now is quite pointless. So how do we make it unpointless? Well, you guessed it, increase your income so you can actually afford the units. Upgrade your income buildings, whether that's trade buildings like this or the actual income buildings. Prioritize those and try not to waste your money on buildings that you're not really gonna need yet. But to be clear, I'm not saying never build or upgrade a military building early. Just look at the units and ask yourself whether you actually are gonna recruit them yet and whether you can afford them. Spend your money when you need to rather than just because it's there. And until you've got money to burn, quite simply, use your income to generate more income. And keep doing this as you take more settlements, as you take more territory, keep building the income buildings to keep your income always going up. Alongside this, over the turns, you want to be researching technologies that increase your income as well. Like for the dwarfs here, there's a whole bunch, and these don't need to be prioritized before everything else necessarily, but they're just another way to keep your income going up. They're usually only small improvements, but those add up over time, of course. So the earlier you take them, the more money they are ultimately going to make you. But only if they're useful to you. For example, this dwarf one to increase income from gems and obsidian is not useful to me because I don't have either of those things yet. Whereas this one, which increases income from province capital settlement buildings, is going to be useful. So don't just take any old thing with income in it, look at what it does and whether it's actually useful to what you've got. Other ways to improve your income, skill points on lords and heroes, like Quartermaster here for Karl Franz, that's reducing upkeep by 10%, so that's going to save a few hundred. On the wizard hero, you've got boost income, so another way to just increase that income a little bit. There can be auxiliaries like so that can increase your income from buildings or that reduce upkeep on certain types of units. Again, if you've got those units, it's going to be useful. If you don't, it's not. And with each different legendary lord and all their different campaign mechanics, you'll probably find some income boosts somewhere in there, like this one for Dakala, income from all buildings 15%. So you can see there's all these different ways to increase your income, buff it up over the course of your campaign. So pay attention to these, take these and increase your income, stack up your buffs as you go through the campaign to keep your income going up. But having a strong economy through buildings and trade and industry is how most factions generally work, but not all, especially the more bad guy factions. They prefer getting their money by, well, smashing people's faces off. Because war is lucrative. When you have a battle, you will get income from the battle itself. You then have the option to potentially get more income from the 3 options at the bottom. In this case, offer a tribute, that gets us a couple of grand. And some factions, like the Greenskins, aren't built for friendly economy and trade because they can't even trade with anyone. But Grimgor has skill points to buff up his raiding, to buff up his looting, his sacking. This is how the Greenskins want to make money primarily. And again, you just take what's useful. For me, I do a lot of sacking of settlements. I don't really loot settlements, which is when you take them and loot them at the same time. I don't really do that, so I haven't taken the skill points for that. So most of my 200 grand here in this campaign has been made by, well, taking other people's money. I don't need to build an economy and get trade. I'll just let everyone else do that and then take the money off them. And that's a legit way to play the game and how the greenskins are going to work best, but it's not the only way. You see, their income buildings do generate a fair bit of income, so if I took loads of territory, built loads of those, I could make my money that way. But with the greenskins, we don't really have any technologies to buff up our income from that kind of thing, so it's not the most effective way for the greenskins to play, but they could play that way. If I want to play Grimgor like he's Karl Franz, you can do that. It's just not going to be as effective, and if I want to play Karl Franz like he's Grimgor and just running around and sacking and raising everyone, I can do that. Again, not going to be as effective as Grimgor, but still possible. As an example, with Bashiva here, a Cathay faction generally wanting to do the good guy thing of building trade and economy and all that nice stuff, well, instead I'm playing like the greenskins essentially. I ran through Cathay, taking all these settlements, but then giving them to the good guy factions around and making money that way. As you can see, I've got plenty of money. I'm in minus negative income, which is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter if you're living in the red as long as you can afford it, right? I got plenty of turns before I'm going to run out of money here with how I am now, so it's doable. And just a last couple of money tips, be aware of the power of real estate. Trading settlements away to other factions is a great way to make money. So if there's a settlement you can take from a faction you're at war with, but you can't get the whole province because a friendly faction's got the rest, your best bet's probably just to trade that away in exchange for the pennies. And as the campaign goes on and settlements get higher level and factions have more money to spend, you can get tens of thousands from doing this. And lastly, it's good to try and have a little bit of money in the bank for emergencies. Like for example here, there's a big Kislev army coming towards my settlement that's only got a 9 garrison. So it's probably going to fall to this army, but I can save it if I've got some money in the bank. We can simply recruit a lord, and then if we've got our regiments of renown, don't recruit your regiments of renown, or at least not all of them. Save a bunch of them up because most factions won't be able to instantly recruit units, right? They need to wait a turn. Nurgle, a bad example because you actually can with them, but most factions won't be able to instantly do this and save themselves. But if you've got all of your regiments of renown available, you can quickly recruit all those and build a solid strong army, now able to defend that incoming dangerous army. So this is the benefit of not recruiting all of your regiments of renown and having a bit of money in the bank.
Your armies are weak.
Now, in a similar vein to your money, you also want your military strength to increase as the campaign goes on as well. Now, if you want to stick with an army, there's a few ways to make it stronger. Like this ghost army here for Heinrich Kemmler, the first thing is rank. As units fight and gain experience, they'll level up and get stronger, which obviously requires you to keep them alive and not lose them in battles. But as we can see, rank provides nice stat boosts, making the unit stronger. The next way to buff your units is the Lord's Red Line skill points. So these will buff up the stats of certain groups of units. So with my full Ghost army, I'm obviously going to take the ones that improve the Ghosty units. All of this progressively making the units stronger and stronger as the campaign goes on. Also, legendary lords usually have a unique group of units that they're good at buffing. So for Heinrich Kemmler, it's the ghost units, here giving regeneration to ghost units. Pretty powerful. He can also give them devastating flanker and a bonus versus infantry, so we're going to make these units absolutely nuts with all these buffs that we're stacking. But ho ho ho, we're not done yet, Sonny Jim laddie boy. We've got buffs in the tech tree as well for certain types of units, so just even more ghosty power. We can stack on what we've already got from our lord, what we've already got from our ranks, so our army will grow stronger and stronger over the course of the campaign until it gets pretty damn disgusting. And there's other sources for this as well, unique campaign mechanics, auxiliaries here, this one for zombies. Obviously this isn't of use to me here, but you can get regeneration for zombies. So lots of different ways to buff up and increase the power of your army. And you can do a similar sort of thing even if you're building a balanced army with combined arms of infantry and missiles and cavalry. You can buff up whichever part of your armies you like, you don't have to do everything. And with the Lord skill point reset button, you can always change up your army and change what the strength is. Maybe you'd like to go from balance to a range and artillery heavy army. Or maybe you'd just like to make Karl Franz into an absolute monster and not put any skill points into the red line. Well, that's perfectly acceptable too. It does give you more flexibility. You don't have to worry about wasting the skill points if you change units. Plus, the units will still get buffed from ranks and if you take any technology to buff them. So there's a good bit of flexibility with building and buffing your army. Just make sure it's always getting stronger in some way, whether that's increasing the power of the units you have, or recruiting better, more powerful ones, or simply being able to build more armies. And that brings us to the age-old question of, should I just have one big powerful army, or is it better to have 3 less powerful ones? Which is better, right? A full army of Temple Guard that costs nearly 7 grand? Or is it better to have 2 full stacks of Saurus Spears for about 8.5 grand? Or maybe 3 full stacks of Skinks for also around 7 grand? What's the right answer depends on a bunch of variables really, but one thing might be difficulty. The higher a difficulty you play on, the more armies you're going to face because the AI has more money, so having more armies is probably a better idea. But it could also depend on the faction you face. If you face the Skaven, they tend to have lots of armies, so if they come at your territory with 5 armies and you've only got 1 army, you're going to have a hard time stopping all 5 of them from sacking or razing some of your settlements. But if you had 3 lesser armies, you'd probably be able to fend off their crappy Skaven Slave Clan Rat armies. Whereas if you face High Elves, who generally have pretty expensive armies, they're not going to have as many, so you might be alright with 1 or 2 stronger armies. But rest assured, if you just have 1 army for most of the campaign and you never make it any stronger, it's probably going to struggle eventually. Or if you don't get more armies as you get more territory, you're going to struggle to defend all of that territory from all the enemy armies. So your army size, your military strength needs to increase as the campaign goes on, which is of course fed by your money. As long as your money goes up, your army power goes up, and your conquering and defending potential goes up, ultimately saving you from complete and utter annihilation. Yes! Okay, next.
Too many wars.
So it seems that a lot of new players like to do it Khorne style, just going to war with everyone in sight. I mean, yeah, the game's called Total War, but that doesn't mean you need to accept every war that comes your way. It's about managing them so you don't end up spreading yourself too thin, losing territory, losing armies, and doing it full German style, just straight up losing wars. Now, the first element of keeping yourself out of too many wars is knowing who's a potential enemy and who's a potential ally. Well, as a rough guideline, there's kind of good guy and bad guy factions. They should be fairly obvious which ones are which for most of them. Some are a little bit more ambiguous, like the Ogres or the Tomb Kings. Some people might say they're bad, some people will say they're fine. They're not quite good, but they're okay. So with this in mind, you can make some loose predictions. Like here is the Lizardmen, a good guy faction, Gorok. Clan Pestilence nearby, the Skaven, they're a bad guy faction, so we know they're likely to be an enemy. Down south here to Henowin, another Lizardmen faction, potential ally right there. And there's some dwarfs over here who are normally a good guy faction, right? But I know from experience that this dwarf faction can be a little bit difficult, and so they could be an ally or maybe an enemy. So don't fully trust any faction to never declare war on you. Remember, it's a loose rule. Vampire Coast, obviously a bad guy faction. Bretonnians, they want you to believe they're good guys, but we know they're French. Empire, obviously a good guy faction. Yuan Bo for Cathay, a good guy faction. So a lot of potential friends around here. Skulltaker there, obviously a bad guy. Rakarth down here, another bad guy. So we can get an idea of who are the potential enemies in Lustria from the start of the campaign. That's not to say none of these good guy factions will ever declare war on us, or that we should never declare war on them, but priorities should be important on who you should deal with first. Get rid of all the bad guy factions around, and then you can start to take out the good guys if you want. But because you good guys are all somewhat kind of aligned as good guys, you'll find them easier to keep on side and to keep as allies, or at least stay out of wars with them, until you maybe feel ready for wars with them as well. Whereas the bad guy factions probably are just as likely to declare war on other bad guy factions as well as good guy factions, but as a bad guy faction you'll at least have a chance to ally with other bad guys, whereas you'll have pretty much no chance generally of allying with good guy factions. You can also get a general sense of this if you look at the attitudes in diplomacy. Here is the Empire, Karl Franz, the Empire factions, Dwarves, Cathay, Kislev, we're all on good terms as good guys, and if you look at all the bad guy factions, well, they're ready to go to war with us at any second. But again, take this information with a pinch of salt. Sometimes factions that seem fine with you might suddenly declare war on you for some reason. So don't trust anybody, but you can get a rough idea of who might be an ally or enemy by if they're a good guy or bad guy. Now the next important element to this in deciding wars is proximity. Playing as Karl Franz Empire here, in the Reichland early on in the campaign, we've got some vampires right next to us just to the west, that's Heinrich Kemmler. Over in the east there's the von Carsteins, who will definitely be a problem later on, and the Facundites up north, Festus, Warriors of Chaos. Those are the 3 big enemies in this region. Now in this campaign, of those 3 major enemies to deal with, I've decided to come and get Festus first, right? I've pushed north, taken a bunch of territory, I'm looking good. But that vampire faction that's right next to me and is bordering my territory is also looking pretty good. They've got 3 stacks sat right there, and my little territory here is pretty undefended. Just a little army here. So it should probably come as no surprise that over the turn, oh look, Heinrich Kemmler of the Vampires has now declared war on me. The bad guy declares war on the good guy. And guess what? He's right next to me. He's bordered me. He's got 3 stacks rolling in on my territory, and I'm in trouble because I don't have any forces back there to stop him, so he's probably going to take 2 or 3 settlements before I can do anything. So when deciding who to declare war on, I should have thought about proximity. Who's the closest bad guy? It's obviously Heinrich Kemmler. I could have taken out him first and then gone after either the Fakundites or the von Carsteins, but alas, now I'm stuck in two big wars. If I try to take out Festus, Heinrich Kemmler's going to run through the Reichland. If I go back and defend the Reichland, Festus is going to push out and retake some of his territory. And it would be the same issue if I went after the von Carsteins first. If I ran all the way over here to get them, chances are Heinrich Kemmler would come for me over here, maybe even Festus would come down to get me, because I'll be away all the way over in Sylvania. So think about your good guys and bad guys, but also proximity. How close are the enemy to you? The closer they are, the more risk they are to get to you quickly if they decide to declare war on you. But if you take them out first, of course, you don't have to worry. Now, the rest of staying out of wars largely revolves around diplomacy. It's very often the case that if you're allied with a faction, they'll ask you to join their wars. Well, realize you don't have to do this. You can say no, there's not really any consequence, it's fine. The money they offer is usually useless. 500, that's not going to pay for a war, even though this is a faction that's nearly dead and only has one settlement. Just ask yourself whether it's actually worth it joining it. Is there territory that you want? Is this faction going to be a threat to you later if they get too big? Maybe then you should join those wars if you're not at war with other people. If you can roughly aim to only ever be in one war at a time, you're going to find things much easier to manage. But obviously that's not always in your control if people declare war on you. That being said, if you have no major enemies or you feel capable of dealing with more than one war, you can use this as a great tool to build relationships. Like here, if I choose to join these wars for Mazdamundi, I can get pretty much everything with him. So it can be worthwhile if you think you can handle the consequences. These smaller minor factions are generally less of a threat than bigger major factions with legendary lords. Then you might want to be a bit more careful. But let's just talk about how we build relationships with other factions so that we can understand how we can destroy those relationships. So here, playing as Miao Ying, our bro Zhao Ming, currently totally neutral with him. No positives or negatives about our relationship. If I wanted to start working towards making him an ally, I'd try to get a trade agreement or non-aggression or both, work with them first, just get those, they'll build up and get stronger over time and we'll build the relationship, eventually leading to more military access, defensive alliance, military alliance, and maybe one day confederation if they're the same faction as you. So with most factions, if you want to create an ally, this is how you have to do it, just building the relationship up passively over time. You can also help relations along by taking actions that your intended ally approves of. Like here, I want to befriend Ivres, and I can see that this little Greenskins faction is at war with Ivres, so I'm going to go after them, beat the crap out of one of their settlements, take it for myself, and then when I look at the relations of Ivres, we can see that they're thoroughly enjoying my war with Skullcrag, plus 12 military actions against them, war with Skullcrag, so it's all helping build our relationship to make Ivres an ally. And this is leading on to a non-aggression and a trade agreement as well, so it's safe to say we're on our way to an alliance with Ivres. But remember, this swings both ways. While you can make friends performing actions that a faction approves of, you can also piss them off by making actions they don't approve of. Back to Miao Ying here, I'm about to get peace with this dissenter faction that I'm at war with, who is also at war with Zhao Ming, so we've been building some relationship, attacking enemies that he dislikes as well, but now we've got peace, and that's a positive reaction with this faction, and if we look at Zhao Ming now, we'll see he's not happy about it. He's absolutely furious. We've now got a bunch of negatives, and our relationship with him is overall deteriorating. Trespassing is another great way to piss people off, walking around in their territory without their permission. That's what military access is for, and we can see Zhao Ming even more furious now, and if we keep stacking up these negatives in our relationship, he eventually might declare war on us, so you've got to be aware of the consequences that your actions are having. And there's a lot of straight up traps for this in Total War Warhammer, like here, playing as a Tain, another high elf faction comes along and offers me trade and a bit of money, and that just sounds like a positive deal, right? No downsides there, not at all. Why would you not do this? It's free money. Well, you need to look at the consequences of your actions. If we take this, it's a positive with this faction, but we can see they're at war with Avalon, a faction I would like to get an alliance with later. So if I take this deal, I'm going to piss off Avalon because I'm making friends with their enemies. So I should not take this deal. Here, playing as Gorbad Greenskins, a faction comes along and offers me non-aggression and a bit of money. Sounds like a no-brainer good decision, right? Just one less faction to declare war on me. Well, take a look at who they're at war with. The Crooked Moon, Clan Moors, and Clan Angrand, three very dangerous major factions that will be tough to deal with individually, let alone if they all get pissed off and declare war on me at the same time, because I made friends with this chump. So we're saying no to that one, thank you very much. Playing here as Kolek, a little Norscan sub-faction comes along, asks for military access. You might think, what's the harm, right? But then you see that they're at war with Kislev and Empire, two very dangerous major factions that we don't want to war with just yet. No thank you, sir. But in some cases, it might be fine. Like here, Avalon, remember I said I wanted to befriend Avalon, they're offering trade. A great way to build our relationship, but they're at war with one little faction, some Dark Elves just to the north of them. It's a minor faction, it's not very dangerous, it's not a great threat to us, so it's fine. I don't mind pissing them off because I'm not worried about them coming after me anytime soon, if at all. So hopefully that makes some sense. Whenever you make any diplomatic decision, just take a look at the faction you're talking to. Who are they at war with? Who are their allies? What's going to be the knock-on effects of your decisions and the consequences? Who's actually being affected? It's very often not just the faction that you're talking to. So with all this in mind, this is how we can control when wars are going to happen. You can manipulate relationships to make a war happen sooner or later. Or maybe not at all, depends on the faction. Like I say, a bad guy faction is probably going to declare war on a good guy faction eventually. You know that war is coming. But when it comes, can somewhat be up to you. If you want it to come sooner, piss the enemy faction off, do actions that make them dislike you. They'll likely come to war with you sooner. If you're not ready for a war with that faction yet, you should probably tread carefully and try not to piss them off, try to take maybe positive actions that they might even like. Maybe give them a little small gift every now and again. This might just delay that war that they're inevitably going to bring to you for a time which is better suited for you, when you can deal with it. And lastly, one of the most powerful ways to control diplomacy is through trading settlements to the faction you're trying to please. Back to earlier when I was attacking those greenskins to please Ivres, well, now that little settlement I've taken, I'm going to gift it to them. This gives us a lot of favor with them. We can get a defensive alliance, we can get some money as well. This is a great way to make money, but also to build relationships. So if there's a settlement that you take that you don't want or that you can't get the entire territory of, just give it to somebody else, get some relationship, get some money. It's incredibly powerful. It's also a great way to stop wars. If you've got too many wars and you need to end some, take some territory off the person that you want to end the war with, or take someone else's territory that they can have, gift it to them in exchange for peace, and maybe some money as well. Here is Grimgor. I'm bored of fighting Zhao Ming, so I'm going to give him this settlement I don't really care about, Fu Chao, going to get peace, and 44 grand. Very nice. So there's a lot of different ways to manipulate wars and to get in and out of them. It's all going to start with diplomacy though, and you understanding who's the biggest threats to you, bad guys, good guys, and how close proximity they are to you. Alright, that's the big one out the way. Last two then.
Scout ahead, always.
Heroes in Warhammer 3 typically serve one of two main roles. You'll either use them as a kind of agent running around the campaign map, scouting, assassinating, assaulting garrisons, and you'll probably focus first of all on the appropriate blue line skills to make them good at those things. The other way you might use your heroes is in your armies in battles, fighting enemies, making use of whatever combat prowess they may possess. For this, you'll probably put most of your skill points into the yellow lines, buffing up the hero themselves, making them stronger, making them tougher, and they'll pretty much forever stay in an army. But by all means, you can mix these up a little bit and do a little bit of both, have the blue line skills for the agent actions and still be able to put them in an army and have them be useful. But whichever way you decide to use them, the main thing they need to be doing, the most important role they can play, is scouting. Going in ahead of your armies, seeing what they're about to run into to potentially save you from disaster. Example time. Here I have a Tamakan army ready to storm on into these Kislev lands and absolutely ravage their lives. I can see this settlement here looks like it's free for the taking, so I'm just gonna charge on in and take it right easy. But oh Shiza, there's an army right next to the settlement and there's two more just to the left of that as well. So it's safe to say I need to get the hell out of there. I don't have much movement range left now. I tried to ambush so I can hopefully sneak away. But oh dear, it hasn't worked. I've been accosted by all three of those armies. I'm going to retreat, but I still can't get away from two of them. And what do you know, my army is probably now dead, because while I might survive these two armies, the third one will probably come after me after this, so I'm probably done for. So this is obviously where your agent hero should come in, to scout the lands ahead so you know what you're running into. Pretty much every army should have their own little scout hero to go on ahead before them. That way you will never be surprised by any enemy armies like so. We then have the opportunity to deal with these armies in a different way, a way that we are in control of. For example, setting up an ambush, making sure I'm at the edge of the movement range of all these armies so I'll be able to get away if it doesn't work. Or you can fall back to your settlements to get the help of garrisons or bring other armies over to help. And just another example is the disgusting elves. I want to push on this settlement here with my vile, disgusting army, but there's a vampire coast and a bit stack right next to it, but I think, well, I can probably take the settlement and still deal with those armies, so I'll just go for it. It'll be fine. So we get on in there and take this settlement. Decisive victory, our army's still in good condition. And over the turn, as expected, the armies come for me, but what? There's another stack as well. That's 2 and a bit stacks, not 1 and a bit. What's happened here? Oh my scheisse balls. Now we might be in goddamn trouble. But now let's rewind and do the same thing again, but we're going to scout this time. We've got the 2 armies still over here. Now I don't have a hero with this army to scout, so I'm just going to use the hero that's in the army to push up and just have a little look around. Obviously this isn't ideal to have to pull a hero out your army, but here we can see that second army, Count Noctilus himself. So now we can make the prediction that if we attack this settlement, well, these 2 armies are going to come over, but this farther away one is probably going to force march its way down here to help them, and we'll end up in the situation that we saw just now. So we'll bring our hero back, get her back in the army, and we're going to set up an ambush outside this settlement, which means we'll get the help of the garrison, and if it goes wrong and the ambush fails, we could just retreat back a little bit and maybe outrun one army as well. And over the turn, they indeed come for us. Our ambush has failed though. Now we've got 2 stacks right on our face. We've got the garrison's help. We probably could defeat this if we fought it, but we'll fall back anyway, which has stopped their second army being able to follow. So now we're in a 2-on-1 on them. Obviously, you would just fight this instead of losing all your spearmen, as I've done here. But now we've dealt with that army, and if I had all my spearmen still, I could go and deal with that second army that sat in the settlement, and boom, we'd have their armies in this region beaten. So you can see quite an extreme difference between scouting versus not scouting. But what if you don't have any heroes to scout with? Or even if you do, here's a couple of little tricks to find out some sneaky information about enemy territory. And a shout out to my community member Sir Buster for these little tricks, because somehow in thousands of hours of this game I've never actually noticed them, but here we go. So here I am down in the wastes as Krotkar, and let's say I want to go and kill some stupid elves next. So here I've got Teclis, I want to get after him, he's got some territory I want, but I can't see anything. I don't know if there's 2 units defending these lands or 200. Now here's the first trick. If we look at these settlements, we can't really see anything that gives away whether there's anyone there or not. But if we gently caress our scroll wheel to zoom out into the full view map, well, let's play Spot the Difference. Can you see what's different about these 2 settlements? I'll give you a few seconds. You may have noticed that this settlement has a tiny little castle with a little banner above it, whereas the other one doesn't, and this one over here does as well. So this zoomed out map is actually giving some pretty vital information despite there being a fog of war. But what does it mean? Well, here's my settlement with no little banner and symbol, but when I put my army in there, hey, little banner and symbol. So what that's telling us is that there are armies stationed in those settlements. So there's definitely 2 armies here, could be 2 units in each, could be 20 units in each. But wait, here's where trick number 2 comes in, where we can find out roughly how big those armies might be by looking at the control and military presence specifically. You can see it says military presence 11, so you might think that that means that there's 11 units altogether, but no, the total military presence number will be split across the amount of settlements in a region, in this case 3. And you'll notice that every settlement has 11 military presence, even the one that doesn't have an army in it. So 11 times 3 being 33, that means that there are 33 units stationed in these settlements. The split we can't know, there might be 20 units in one army and 13 in another, or something different, who knows, but we know there's a lot of units there. Well, let's send in Ura to investigate. Scouting ahead, we can see there's an army here with 15 units in it. Okay, so then that should mean that this settlement has 18 units in it, right? That adds up to our 33. Well, let's have a look. Oh, scheisse, that's a 20 stack, so that's 35 units, not 33. What the hell? Well, it's because if you divide 35 by 3, the 3 settlements, you get 11.66666666666666667, roughly, so CA just rounding down to the simple number of 11. So it's not an entirely accurate means of knowing what you're running into, but it can still give you a pretty damn good idea. At least of what's in settlements. Of course, if things are outside of settlements, they don't count for military presence, so there could be 1 army stack inside and then 3 outside the settlement. Obviously, you might run into a bad situation if you only think there's 1 stack there, so take this with a pinch of salt, be careful with it, but it's useful.
So many ranged.
And the last mistake new players make is a tale as old as time, bringing too much ranged in your army. Now, this obviously has a bit more of a battle focus, but it all starts in campaign. Now I know if you're new to the game, battles can be a struggle to learn, and sometimes it seems easiest just to bring shitloads of artillery and blow the crap out of everything before it even reaches you. And it can work great sometimes until it doesn't. Usually facing any kind of rush faction that's going to run over you with tons of units, you're going to quickly find they'll be able to push their way through your front line, get after your missiles from the front, they're going to flank you from the sides and get round the back, and you're simply not going to have enough melee units to be able to defend against it. But to be clear, missile-heavy armies can have an advantage in auto-resolve. They can give you better odds because the auto-resolve assumes that your units get to use all of their ammo, which realistically, if you fight the battle, they won't. So there is some advantage, but obviously sometimes you do have to fight battles, and in that situation you're going to find your ranged army struggles, especially if it has to fight a bunch of silver-shielded spearmen who are going to block most of your missiles. Now that's not to say ranged heavy armies aren't going to work, you just need to know how to use them, and that's going to take some experience and understanding on how to protect them in different ways. Or sometimes it can just depend on the unit. An army of shades, for example, is disgustingly dangerous with its armor-piercing missiles, so that can be a great missile-heavy army. But what I generally recommend is to understand how to protect missile units before adding more and more in. Maybe take an army with like 3 to 5 missile or artillery units and learn how to protect them effectively. Because if you can't even protect 5 units, how do you expect to protect any more? For the most part, it's about learning how to protect your flanks from things that are trying to flank you and having a sturdy enough front line to hold back the hordes of enemies coming. If you don't protect your flanks or have a strong enough front line, you're going to find enemy units on your missiles pretty quick before they can really use any of their ammo. But even then, sometimes something sneaks through the net and you need to be able to deal with that too and have the units be able to protect each other. And then once you've learned how to protect 3, 4, 5 missile units, maybe add another one in. Start bringing 6, bring 7, see if you can protect those. Because, well, think about it. What's better, having 6 missile units that only get to use about half of their ammunition each before they're killed because you can't protect them? Or is it better to just have 3 missile units that get to use all of their ammunition? You're going to have used the same amount of ammunition as the 6, but you've used up 3 less slots in your army. So instead of bringing half an army of ranged units you're not going to be able to protect, slim it down to a more realistic amount that you will be able to protect based on your skill level, based on the faction you're playing, based on the units you have available. There's variables. For this Empire army, I'd do something like this and get more cavalry and spears. That gives us plenty of units to hold the front line, protect the flanks, give our missile units time to use all their ammo, to do all their damage, and use our cav to flank around and hit some hammer and anvil as well. So yeah, consider using more balanced armies if you're new to the game. You're going to learn a lot more about how to protect missile units, about how to use them, and just generally how to be better at Total War. If you're just going to use artillery and blow everything up, well, that doesn't really take any skill. You're not going to learn much about the game. Which is fine if you don't care about learning more, maybe you just enjoy blowing stuff up. Go for it, you little pyromaniac. But there we go, 5 ways to be less of a noob in campaign. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. This video has been about 3 times longer than I intended, but here we are. If you'd like to support the channel, consider checking out the YouTube memberships or the Patreon. Otherwise, I thank you. I will see you in the future.